the bleeding out of Madame R16. She's got the best eyesight in the world. Her vision is so good. She can see the blood moving through a person's veins like they're rivers or oceans, and she can spot the places where the blood's pooled up, where it started to clot. She knows the minute when a person has a serious problem with their heart or brain, because it shows up on their skin as a sort of mottling, like a kind of blue-green mold. She knew I was dying when I was about 14 years old. The first thing she did was to tell me I was going to live. She said that I'd just started a bad period, and it would all be over by the end of summer. She told me that I needed to make it through the summer, because the rest of my life would be very happy. But she wasn't the one who told me to go back to the beach and drink more salt water. That was all me. It's an easy thing to go to a hospital if you think you're sick, but it's not so easy for a kid to find his way to a hospital when he knows he's really fine. When I was about 15 years old, I found out how easy it was to get into the hospital if you thought you were sick. It's true. I was walking down the street on my way to the beach, and I passed a girl who was lying flat on the sidewalk, and there were a couple of grown-ups around her. They were arguing with her, yelling at her, trying to pull her to her feet. I didn't see anything wrong with her, though, so I went on my way, and I got to the beach, and I swam out until I couldn't swim anymore, and I floated on my back. And I saw something in the water. It looked like a little boat, but it was moving under the water, just like a fish. I swam toward it, and it went farther away. I was tired, so I just lay on my back, floating in the water. I thought about swimming toward it, but then I decided I was too tired. After a while, I heard some shouting behind me, and I looked over my shoulder and saw a bunch of people standing around the girl who was lying on the sidewalk, and some of them were doing things with the little net. They looked like they were fishing for something. They had it under the water, and then they lifted it up, and then they brought it back under the water. There was a little silver cage, and there was a goldfish in the cage. And they put it back in the water, and then they brought up another one. It was another little silver cage, and there was another goldfish. And I knew what those little silver cages were, but I didn't want to admit it to myself. I knew that there was nothing good in those cages, and that they were making the girl lie there in the street, and that they were keeping those goldfish alive. The goldfish was breathing, and the girl wasn't, and the little silver cages were so small that it must have been very hard for the goldfish to move around, and they were moving very slowly. So slowly that they couldn't get away from their cage. I wanted to say something to those people who were doing that, but I didn't know how. I just kept on floating in the water. But the next day, I went back to the beach, and I saw those people again. They had a big net now. It was almost like a net for catching crabs, except that it was huge and flat and shiny. There were two big people holding the corners of it, and they were dragging it across the sand, dragging it along the water's edge. And every once in a while they would stop and lift up the net, and there would be little silver cages in it. And every time they lifted up the net, they would look down inside, and they would pull the little cages out, and there would be two goldfish. They would look at the goldfish for a few moments, and then they would put the goldfish back in the little cage, and they would lower the net back into the water, and they would drag it along the sand. They didn't notice me. I just watched them. I thought about those two goldfish for a while. What was going on inside them? I could only imagine what it was like for them, but I could imagine how it must feel for me to be trapped in such a small place. And then I thought about what would happen if I were one of those two goldfish in the net. What would happen? What would I do? And then I thought about that girl who had been lying in the street with those people around her. And I knew that I had to go to her and tell her that I knew she was dying.